You don't want to leave. You really don't want to leave your computer room. It's an evil, wicked art world out there. Let me tell you what will happen to you if you try to leave your computer room, Red. See, you'll find yourself in some kind of art opening somewhere talking to somebody. Some lady will come up to you and she'll recognize who you are and say, oh, I know who you are. You're Stephen Chandler, the red mud painter from Georgia. And she'll say something like, I got this really big collection of folk art, you know, and then she'll invite you over after the opening. And you'll go back to her house and see what, she'll be talking about all the Mose Tollivers and Jimmy Lee Southers she has, and all the, she has Bill Traylor, some Howard Finsters, you know, and it's rattle on this giant laundry list of folk artists a mile long. And she'll probably have like an ex-husband, you know, that left or is deceased, and she'll be sitting there showing you all of her folk art collection, you know, and talking about how she's part of the, you know, museum committee of some folk art collection in some lowly nowhere town in the south or maybe up in the northwest, you know, and she knows all these board members and that she's friends with Judy Saslow or, you know, some big New Orleans artist gallery or something like that, you know. She'll be name popping, dropping all over you, you know. And that's what probably happened if you leave your house, you know. So you'd be sitting there in her living room drinking a bottle of wine with her, you know, and then you'll realize that, you know, she starts telling you things. She'll start saying things to you like, I need a red mud painting in my collection of folk art. And I've seen how you've been developing, you know, and you'll be playing along with it like you never heard of who, you know, Basquiat or Warhol or Salvador Dali is. You'll be like, I'm just some old lonely, I just make my Georgia red mud paintings in my room, and I don't know nothing, you know, and I just try to get what little table scraps I can get for him. And she'll go, well, I'm here to help you out. That's where it starts right there. It starts like that. So then, before you know it, you'll be sitting there in her living room, and she'll sit down next to you. And she'll be telling you about her first discoveries of folk art. It'll be some really interesting stories. And I said, sweet, you know, because you'll be thinking like, well, I need to get up the bracket here. You know, I've been on eBay for a while, and I've sold some work for some good money, you know, people saying it. But then you think, you know, there's always this other layer of rich folks out there, you know, that are willing to buy your stuff, but you just don't know how to get to them. And here's this lady here. You be taking a couple of swigs of that wine, you know. She may start bringing out some cognac or a neat little mixed drink, a little southern mix, julep deal or whatever, you know, and she'll be talking to you about the stuff, you know. And it's always the same kind of folk art collectors. They're always in the late 50s, you know, ex-hippie, kind of heavy-set kind of women that love to coddle and get to know a young, budding, good-looking folk artist like yourself, you know, and they understand the troubles and turmoils you go through as a folk artist. They always know about that. You know, and she'll be sitting there talking to you, and she'll come and sit down right next to your lap. And she'll be saying things like, you know, I sure could use a red mud painting in my collection. How much you willing to part for one? And you'll be sitting there thinking about it. He goes, well, I'll be willing to sell you one. And she tells you, well, how about $1,000? You'll be going, hell yeah, $1,000? And that will be in something like the Birmingham, you know, Missy Lala's collection of folk art, or something like the Savannah, Georgia Community Center of Folk Art Collections by yada yada, you know. That's how it all starts. Well, then she'll be sitting there next to you, and she'll put her hand underneath, and she'll whisper something like, hey, I like to play giddy up. And you'll be going like, what do you mean giddy up? And she goes, and then her hand will get closer and closer to your pee-pee. And you're going to get really worried and go, I don't know about this. I know what's going on here, you know. You'll be looking her over, you know, after the wine buzz sets in and you just get relaxed, you're thinking, you know, I'm going to take one for the team. Why not, you know? And then as she stands up and then as you grasp the whole volume of her, you know, at least all 300 pounds of this woman, she stands up and says, I want to ride the pony. And then you're going to realize what the art world's really about, buddy. And you're going to realize that, am I going to ride the pony? Am I going to let her ride the pony? And he said, well, it's going to be for folk art. See, that's what's going to happen, Red. I just don't. I can see a scenario like this. That's why you should never leave your computer room. Don't ever go. Don't ever leave your room. It's always out there. There's always a saddle up and ride a young, jubilant buck like yourself. No, it's not any fun. Because then after you do this, after you do take one, you hit one for the team, for the extra sale, or the extra get that in that collection. You just become the folk art bitch. And then that's all of a sudden, that's going to be downhill. Maybe your name will get passed around from each folk art collector to the next, each divorcee, mid-50-year-old women. They know that you're ambitious and lovely and sweet and dainty. And before you know it, you'll be shuttling around from like New Orleans to Birmingham to Atlanta. Every dealer, every woman will be saying, like, I want to have a piece of that red mud. I want some red mud. See, that's what it comes down to. That's what them sales are about. They just passing them dudes around like that, And you'll be like, she'll say, hey, I want to have at least 5 red muds in my house. Why don't you come over here for the weekend? And you're thinking, whoa, 5 red muds? Well, that's going to be at least $1,500 a whop. And she goes, oh, that's cool with me. I'm all right. I'm living off my husband's life insurance is what she'll tell you. He died about 5 years ago. And I'm awfully lonely, and I love to collect folk art. That's what's going to start right there, Red. And are you going to be able to stop that? You're going to be able to put the brakes down on something like that? You just don't want to leave your room. Don't leave your house. Stay home, because it's not a pretty world out there for folk arts. Ain't no different than the rest of the world.